アウトだと思ってね、まあいろんな美術館だとかいろんなねキュレーターさんたちがまとめて私の生涯の写真をまとめてくれてんだけど、もうちょっと長生きしたいと思ってるのは、生まれた時に天からね才能をもらいすぎちゃったのよ。それをまだ使い切ってないから、使い切りたいから、もうちょっと長生きするからね。
Hello there. Nobuyoshi Araki is one of the most prolific and controversial figures in Japanese photography. He's produced more than 500 photobooks. His exhibitions have sparked demonstrations by feminists, and he's been accused of being a misogynist and a pornographer. He grew up in post-Second World War Tokyo when the country was in a state of turmoil, struggling to restore an identity. Not far from his home was the infamous red light district, Yoshiwara, and his childhood playground was the graveyard at Jokanji Temple. It was here that prostitutes with no family would be buried without ceremony. The two themes of death and eroticism have dominated his work for 6 decades.
私の場合はその墓場だから、遊び場が近所にその墓場があったから、染み込んじゃったのかもしれない。それがずっと引きずってるね。それがやっぱり私の東京の原点で、東京の街っていうのはやっぱり生と死が混ざり合ってて、すごくいい。パッて表通りざわめきの声とか動いてる。ポッて裏町入ると静止してて人がいなくて死んでるっていうか、それの混ざり合いが至る所にこう混在してるじゃない。
His father, Chotaro, who ran a traditional Japanese footwear shop, gave him his first camera when he was 6. After completing his studies in film and photography, he landed a job as a photographer at Japan's largest ad agency, Dentsu. There he met his future wife, Yoko. He was completely unsuited to this type of mundane work. He was too much of a nonconformist. Whenever he had an opportunity, he would experiment with street photography, but later started taking models back to the Dentsu studio, often making nude photographs. He eventually got fired for producing what they termed shocking and inappropriate pictures. This freed him up to develop his own unique work, which became increasingly influenced by the rebellious spirit of Provoke magazine and the unconventional photographers like Daido Moriyama. The impact of this exposure was already visible in his first major project and book, Sentimental Journey. This book was very personal and had a narrative style. It's now regarded as one of the most important Japanese photo books of the 20th century. The subject is his love affair, honeymoon, and marriage to Yoko. He took pictures of his wife constantly. He found the abstract idea of love boring, but was more interested in the feeling of love. The most well-known shot from this series shows Yoko curled up sleeping in a boat. The photo is called Boat of Death. The idea for this title comes from a river myth in which the souls of the dead must pay a toll to cross over. The picture is also extremely gentle and perhaps signifies the death of their old, individual lives as they begin this new partnership. In a published essay, My Love Life, Yoko described Araki as a sweet and sensitive character. This portrayal is very different from that of his many critics. They see his fondness for bondage and sexually explicit poses as proof of his exploitation of women. He's been called a monster with a raping gaze. On the other hand, the text in his photo books frequently focuses on the sexual liberation of women. And one feminist writer suggested that while Araki's women look vulnerable, They mostly stare back at the photographer, asserting their power and control over the situation. I can't share any of these images in this video, but you can Google them. Many of his models said that he made them feel better about what they saw as their physical flaws. He insists that he didn't intend to shock anyone by this work, and that only artists without any talent try to shock. It was more of a natural impulse. He claims that he's seeking the beauty of things, but by portraying reality. He includes aspects of the cruelty of life, how people age, get wrinkled, or grow fatter. It's these flaws or imperfections that separate his erotic works from that of pornographers. His models seem to be wishing that they could be worth more in the eyes of others, as well as in their own reflections. He's not capturing these imperfections to be cruel, but to expose the cruelty of existence. He's another photographer who's referencing the ancient idea of wabi-sabi, the appreciation of the beauty of imperfections. When you look at this work, one is initially shocked by the explicit nature of it, but then one senses the presence of decay and death. He sees photography in general as a process of capturing death. There's a death associated with each photograph of a person. The moment that one captures will never exist again. When he was asked how he achieves intimacy within these pictures, he replied, "Don't ask me such a thing. I gained access through sex." He says that he always has sex with his models and that it was foreplay for the photography or vice versa. He likes to shock and say outrageous things, so I'm not sure to what extent this is true. What is true, though, is that later he had prostate problems, which put a stop to any happy endings or beginnings. Araki's position in Japanese photography has been compared to that of Robert Frank's in the West. Some of the comparisons seem to me to be a bit forced, but they were both certainly hugely influential, and they both challenged the dominant social mores. Initially, the reaction by critics to Frank's work was very similar. They described the photographs in the Americans as sad and perverse. These two photographers did form a friendship, and Araki's work, particularly his series Shiniki, or Private Diary for Robert Frank, was inspired by and dedicated to Frank. It's difficult to get a fix on their relationship, mainly because Araki says a lot of contradictory things to provoke reactions. During an interview, he said he doesn't think about Robert Frank's photographs at all. He thought that Frank liked to show his intelligence and ideas through his photographs. He was an observer of society, and he was revealing social consciousness or social reality. He said that while Frank would take pictures from elevated hotel windows, his pictures of people are close-up views taken from a low vantage point. What he sees from the ground level of a taxi window are women's butts. Those are his words. The cultural and spiritual traditions of the East differ in some important ways from those of the West. There's a disparity between the approaches to everyday objects and experiences, and these variances are reflected through art. I'm obviously speaking broadly, but in the East there was a stronger photographic emphasis on discovering meaning in the everyday, while in Western photography, more attention was given to exposing the unfamiliar, dramatic, or strange. Over the past century, these differences in approaches have gradually become blurred. Araki believes that one should shoot what's around you, what's familiar. He looks for intimacy in interactions with people, animals, as well as objects. He has no issues with including himself in his pictures. For his project Tokyo Lucky Hole, he photographed at a club in the red light district. He was quite happy to hand the camera to a friend or one of the prostitutes. He was merging the line between the observer and the observed. He recognizes that photographers like Nan Goldin and Larry Clark would also on occasion appear in their works. He sees his approach as different though. He says they seem to focus on particular situations or occasions, while he explores the banality of life, everyday activities. Araki sees himself as a subjective photographer. Everything is revealed from his perspective. This is contradictory to the journalistic ideal of attempting to be as objective as possible. Even though he isn't strictly the author of some of these shots, he sees the process as his. Also, the camera and the film belong to him, so he gets the credit. Another subversive project was his book Pseudo Diary. For him, taking pictures is just like keeping a diary, but he also sees photography as a form of lying. A photograph is a secondary thing, while only the actual objects are true. Through this work, he wanted to minimize the seriousness that he saw within the photographic profession. He would alter the automatic date feature in his point-and-shoot camera to suit his needs. A lot of the pictures were dated April the 1st, April Fool's Day, while there were also a lot of images shot on August 6th, 9th, and 15th, dates relating to the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. His wife Yoko died very young at age 43. For a year afterwards, he would almost exclusively take pictures of the sky from his balcony, capturing the sadness, the mystery, and the loneliness of death. He was coming to terms with the fact that death is an inevitable aspect of our journey. As he did with his father and his mother, the last photo of Yoko was of her in the coffin. He also published Winter Journey, a photojournal of their life together from the time she was diagnosed until she died. I'll run some more photographs revealing the closeness of their relationship. Thanks for staying with me, and I'll see you next time.
ソファーで隣に彼女がいて、そんでパッと撮った写真があるわけ。でそういう写真が惹かれるわけ。例えば愛とか何とかっていうことが写真一番重要なことなんだけど、私にとってはこんだけこう愛してると思った、それから愛してるって感じた時を撮った